So Legion's back with season 2. Now a lot of people say this is one of the best shows visually just to look at. It's absolutely beautiful to watch. And I agree, but I think that a lot of these visual effects that you see used episode after episode after episode, it's not just because they look cool. It matches the themes that the show's addressing, and I've tried to break down the main different visual effects that we see throughout season 1 and first episode of season 2, and explain how I think they link to the specific issues, in particular, not being able to trust your own perception, mental illness, and other stuff like that. Now, the first effect I want to talk about is these dissolve transitions. Now, they use these to symbolize a lot of different things. One is that blurring of lines between reality and fantasy, the blurring of lines between different identities, and they'll even highlight this sometimes. They'll show two people, and when they switch from one person to another, they'll do a dissolve blur between them, but then they'll hold both people, both images up for a fraction of a second, and you'll see both of them superimposed on each other almost, just really driving home this idea of parallelism between identities. And when you see these dissolve transitions from one thing to another thing to another thing, it really just shows how memory in particular is just a blender, and we throw these images, and rather than them being kept separate and apart, oftentimes our memory will just jumble and blend these things together and create new images out of these blended composites. And then oftentimes, rather than dissolving from one person to another, they'll dissolve a single person down to almost nothing, and they'll just be kind of a ghost-like after image. And I think this just shows how oftentimes people, they can be almost illusionary, and rather than feeling like they're concrete and tangible and they're real and objective reality, you can feel like almost everyone could just be a hallucination and a mirage, and everything is just so dependent on our own perception and nothing's really real. And then to really drive home this idea of a fractured psyche, oftentimes we'll see two images and we'll see an actual this thick black line dividing these two images, and we'll see the black line moving back and forth, cutting between them. So I think, again, the idea of having a mind, but having this mind be split between these different things rather than unified and united, nothing can symbolize this more than just this thick line just cutting through these images. And then so many cool things with light. Oftentimes lens flares are combined with these dissolve transitions I was talking about, showing how the light we choose to view something in can transform things from one thing to something else. Other uses of light, we see different things bathed in different kinds of light, and I think that just shows the mood we're in, the mindset we have can completely change how we interpret the objective reality that we're looking at. We see sometimes characters and they're traveling through different rooms, and different rooms are bathed in completely different light. Again, I think that goes back to the idea of a fractured psyche, and you kind of get the feeling of going through someone's mind, traveling through someone's consciousness, their psyche. And if it was fractured, what better way to represent this than completely different lights, completely different moods, completely different mind states. And then oftentimes with mental health issues, they're going to be the struggle for clarity. So I love their use of things like smoke, shadows, even blurring out things where you just don't feel you're able to really utilize your senses and you can really see things clearly. And we see lots of different uses of darkness and shadows. We see shadows falling on half of someone's face, emphasizing this kind of dual nature, this potential for darkness. We see things, like I said, obscured with shadow, not having that clarity, being able to see things clearly. Oftentimes we see characters and we see them as a little bubble of light, and the whole rest of the screen is filled with darkness. And again, you can feel like when you're struggling with your mental health, you're just this kind of locus of light and clarity, but there's all this darkness and confusion all around you, and it's constantly encroaching in on you. And then we get lots of images flash so quickly you can't even consciously perceive them. And oftentimes you feel like you get these little flashes of clarity, but they're so quick you can't really grab hold of them, you can't really consciously understand them, but at some subconscious level you feel like you're understanding it. And I love these little flash images, super rapid fire images we get. It can kind of convey that. I love all the different shots we get of people, and we see them either in mirrors or either through windows. Either we see them through water and we get some pool shots, and we see how the water distorts their body, and we get this idea that we never really see people objectively at their fundamental essence. Anytime we see anything, it's always mediated through these intermediaries. There's always these layers between us, and these layers, they inevitably distort and affect and color what we see on the other end. And then I love when they want to symbolize someone being a devil on the shoulder, being a figment of someone's imagination, how they're just draped over them, and just the way they did the blocking and the way they put the people beside each other, it just really drives home this idea that they're not two different humans having an interaction. No, it's some kind of evil, devilish spirit, whispering in your ear, some kind of nagging voice of self-doubt. So I think they're really able to convey that effectively. So I'll end the video there. There's more I want to say, but I'm trying to get the length down, so I'll stop there. It's a good show. I can definitely recommend it. People say it's indulgent, pretentious. It definitely is. I'm not as crazy about the show as other people are. I'll argue with someone and say that it's not the best superhero TV show. Daredevil season 1, far better than Legion season 1 at least, but season 2 starting out, so we'll see.